Hey, welcome to the Leader Factory. This seminar is all about building a culture that builds leaders. And what we're going to start with is laying a foundation for collaborative excellence. That's what we'll be doing today. So just be laying a foundation for collaborative excellence. So you might be thinking probably like, what does leadership have to do with collaboration? Or maybe you may have figured it out. But ultimately, what we are going to do today is our core message. Okay, if I can just call it the core message. Our core message really is about understanding that the greatest organization, okay, or the greatest competitive advantage rather in the 21st century and beyond is not a unique outcome, but a unique culture, one that is systematically develops leaders at every level. So today we're going to learn about the first steps to building yours, okay? And we're going to learn about why it's important to be able to develop leaders at every level and why this is so important for organizational success in whatever form the organization takes, okay? Yeah, so to begin with, we'll start with looking at something very, very important. We'll just look at the crisis and the opportunity that I have identified. Okay, so we'll start by looking at the crisis and the opportunity that I have identified. But before we get into the crisis and the opportunity, maybe let me just get some views from you as to what you feel, what you think leadership is. So, Elizabeth, what do you think leadership is from your perspective?
Okay, I think leadership is the ability to influence individuals or say a group of individuals to behave in a certain way towards achieving similar goals.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting perspective. How about you, Nyokabe? What do you think? What is leadership?
I think I have the same sentiments. I believe leadership is just a matter of influencing people. But do I go deeper or we go later?
You can go deeper. I just want to get your overall view. Then, because as we build up in the conversation, we will get to put these things together. So feel free.
No, that one I'll be describing a leader. So let me leave it for later.
Okay. So do you think anyone can be a leader? What do you think, Nikari?
Everyone, anyone or everyone? The question is different.
Anyone.
Anyone.
Yeah. Do you think anyone? Yeah.
I don't believe anyone can be a leader, but I believe everyone can be a leader with the right, once you input the right skills. But not everyone, anybody cannot be a leader, but everyone can be a leader. I don't know if you're getting me.
That's interesting. Yeah, I get the idea. I get the idea. It needs refining, but I get it. Thanks for that perspective. How about you, Elizabeth? How do you see it? Can anyone be a leader?
I think so. I think anyone can be a leader provided they've got the necessary traits of being an effective leader and the qualities.
All right, great. So let's start with our first part, which is looking at the crisis and the opportunity then. And to begin this first part, I have a short exercise, right? So I'm saying the exercise, I say take out a piece of paper, but that would be probably if I'm seeing you guys with pieces of paper. Right now, I don't know if you've got pieces of paper, but if you can use your phone, anything, okay? A WhatsApp chat, but could you just write down one ambitious goal that you want to achieve in your personal life, business, family, career, it doesn't matter, but just one goal. What? Are you able to do that?
Yes. Do we
Yes,
have a time limit? We do it immediately.
Yeah, just now, because I want us to build up on that. We'll have a conversation around the goal setting and how it builds up.
Okay, so is this goal one per personal life, per business, per family, or just one?
One per person, just choose one. So that we
In
keep
a
it simple.
okay, short term, long
Yes.
term.
It has to be an ambitious goal. So I'll define what. So ambitious, not something out of your routine. Not like I want to pay rent. You know, that's what you do every time. You get
Yeah.
so it can be short term, long term. Just make sure it's ambitious. Yeah.
Okay. Done.
Okay, great. Elizabeth, good.
Yes, done as well.
Okay, great. So with that in mind, I want to define, first of all, to make it clear what the difference is between an ambitious goal and a routine goal. These are two different types of goals. So the goal you've written down is an ambitious goal. So it's a very important word for us to consider, the word ambitious, okay? A routine goal is a goal that we can achieve within our current environment and the resources that we currently have, okay? So normally in our life, if you've noticed, routine goals are never the problem, okay? Like, for example, if you plan to go to town, that's a routine goal, okay? If you plan to go for a particular trip that probably you know you could accomplish, that's a routine goal. So we don't normally have problems there, right? I think we can agree. We don't normally have, we have problems when we set an ambitious goal, a goal that is outside our routine, a goal that is outside what we currently can achieve, afford, or what we can currently control in our current moment. Okay, that's when things get tricky, when we set that type of a goal, an ambitious goal and a routine goal. Does the difference make sense so far?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's just explore this question then. Why do you think we fail to meet our ambitious goals? Maybe let's just explore. So you could give an idea. Who would like to go first? Elizabeth, why do you think we fail to meet our ambitious goals? According to you, not the goal you've written down, just in general, okay? Just thinking
Okay.
in general.
I
Yes.
think most of the times it's a bit difficult for people to achieve long-term goals because we'll be having that mindset to say, I'm yet to do this. In such a time, I'm supposed to have achieved this. So I think that's what takes most of the time for people to get those goals achieved in actual sense.
Okay. So like, are you able to give any specific things that maybe hinder people? I don't know if you get what I mean. Like, when I say
Okay.
specific, something tangible that you could point at. Yeah.
Okay, I think procrastination, as well as
Okay.
not having a clear plan on how those goals can be achieved. A
Okay.
clear written
So,
out plan. How,
yeah, I'm just trying to understand like more from you. Okay. So if you say like procrastination and not having a clear out written plan, if just out of curiosity, if somebody had a clear written plan and was not going to procrastinate, do you think they would achieve an ambitious goal?
I think they would.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just want to get an idea. I'm just getting a bigger picture from you. How about you, Nokabi?
Yes.
What do you think?
For me, I believe that everything in life requires a sacrifice, and an ambitious goal requires a sacrifice that most of us are not willing to make.
Right.
And that is, we start with the mindset. You have set a different goal than you're used to. So you have to
Yes.
make sure your mindset is even different so that you can move different. And that is
Yes.
where most of us don't take that leap. We know what is required of us, but most people are not
Yeah.
willing to make the sacrifice.
Mhm. Okay. I appreciate that feedback. Nyokabi and Elizabeth. So let me share a story, okay, from my own experience growing up. So I am an artist. Okay, I was. I don't even know how to say it. I don't know if I can say I was or I am, but I'm really good at drawing. But there's one item that I'm particularly good at drawing. Okay, one thing, and that's cars. I'm very, or I was very good because I've not done it in a while. So I was very good at drawing cars. Okay, so good that I received a lot of hype and praise from my peers, and they encouraged me to pursue it as something serious. Okay. So when I began to think about it at a young age, I didn't know what I could do with the fact that I could draw nice vehicles. So the best thing I could come up with at that time was that I would start a car company. Okay. I want to start a car company. And I was thinking if I could start a car company, I would be the one to design the cars and all that, right? That was my thought. That was how I looked at it, at least. So I felt, okay, fine, that's something I can do. And out of that excitement, I rushed out to my parents and I told my parents, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is my, my dream. So then my parents had to have a conversation with me where they basically gave me the idea that in my country, Zambia, that wouldn't be a good career choice, okay? Because ultimately in Zambia, I should be thinking about getting a good education that is within the current economic, what the economy can absorb, right? And proceeding from there. That was the conversation we had. And I took that, I bought into the advice that they gave, okay? But when I bought into the advice that they gave, years later on, when I reflect back as to what happened, if I switch events in my mind, okay, let's just say somehow my parents had the capacity to assist me to sponsor that dream. Just somehow, let's say they had it and they were able to do it, okay, where would my life be today? I would not be the person I am today as far as what I'm doing is concerned, right? I'll be doing something entirely different, probably heading towards the direction of being a car designer or something. But I don't feel that it would have led me to achieving the goal. All right. I don't feel just if that happened, I would have been a car designer or I would have owned a car company. I don't feel just my parents agreeing to sponsor the dream could have led to that success, right? But what I do believe is that my parents did contribute to the dream dying. Not in a bad way, okay? I'm not saying it like they were dream killers, in that type of sense. No, they are very supportive people and look out for my own well-being. And probably the advice they gave was the most reasonable and most valuable advice that I meant to receive. I was meant to receive, okay? Because today I'm still doing great, if you put it that way. As far as my dreams are concerned, I am in the path that is taking me there, right? But in that moment, they contributed to the death of the dream. Now, a question that I ask myself every time is, who are my parents, basically? Basically, if I think about it, my parents are people. They are people just like me. They are people just like you, just like Elizabeth, just like Nyokabi. My parents are also people. Just like your parents, just like any parents in this world, they are people, okay? So if I was to use that word people, okay, I get the word people, and then I generalize it, right? And then let's say, what did I experience when my parents advised me to take a different path? I would say I experienced a roadblock, right? It's like traveling and then you meet the police and the police tell you, no, this path you're trying to take, there's been an accident, so you have to divert, go this other direction. That's a roadblock, right? You got diverted because of the roadblock that was there. So my parents are people and I experienced a roadblock. So what I do is when I think back, I think back and try to coin the experience. When I try to coin the experience, I always say I went through a people roadblock. Okay. Now let's ask ourselves this genuine question. It's a very genuine question. Okay. How many ambitious goals have you set in your own personal life that have been stopped because of a people roadblock? How many? Okay, apart from, because Elizabeth talked about procrastination, Nyokabi talked about paying the price, but ultimately, if we think about it, 90% of these, for you to be able to be persistent, for you to be able to say, okay, I'm going to do it, 90% of those distractions are coming from people. It's not a goat or a cow that is going to come to you and disturb your plans. I don't get what I mean. So am I making sense to talk about these people roadblock? Elizabeth, what do you think?
Yes, you're making sense. I hear you.
Yeah.
Yes, people do contribute to creating that roadblock. But I think
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's about passion as well. It
Yeah.
depends with the passion that the person is having. I think if
Yeah.
you've got a passion for something, even if people are to tell you otherwise, you'll still pursue what you want to pursue.
You want to pursue. Exactly. I hear you. How about you, Nyokabi? What do you think about it? Am I in the right track for me to talk about these people roadblock?
I fully support Elizabeth in that. Yes, people are there, and unfortunately, the society is built on trauma that we pass on to people. They are trying to protect us, not that they are telling us not to be ambitious. They're just trying to protect us from what they learned. But looking back, I feel like it was a mindset that also happened to me, but not in that I'm an artist,
Yeah.
uh, but the delays, it's because of the people. But I'd bring it back to a mindset problem, because I believe that if I really wanted to, I wouldn't have listened to what people are telling me about my dream, because these are my goals, and I'm the one who wants to achieve my goals. So why would I be letting other people stop me? So yes,
Yes.
people have stopped me in the past, but moving forward, I wouldn't let that mindset stop me.
Yeah. Okay. I really like how you guys are picking up on the conversation and framing things. So that's one side of the coin. Okay. I want to say that's one side of the coin. If we look at the other side of the coin, okay, we have painted people as the roadblocks. But if we look at the other side of the coin, the same people are painting as roadblocks are the same people who are never missing in any success story. I don't get what I mean, right? In other words, today, if I was a car if I owned a car company, the story would begin. I remember when I had my dream and I told my parents, and my parents supported me. The same people, right, can either be the roadblock, but are also the main reason actually for success, more than we actually account for, more than we care to admit. Okay, and we're going to see this more in a minute. Okay, I just want us to go through a few instances that make this very clear. Okay, so I call this phenomenon that we are discussing right now, this idea that we're discussing right now, okay, I call it the leadership deficit. So let me explain what a leadership deficit is from my point of view. Okay, and that's why our understanding of leadership, I believe, by the time we're done with this interaction, is going to entirely change. Okay. So when I say a leadership deficit, what I believe is that we are surrounded by dreamers and innovators, okay? But we have a crucial shortage of facilitators. Okay. By that I mean, even if I have a dream, as long as the dream is ambitious, okay, as long as the dream is outside my routine, I will need other people's help. And if I need other people's help, they have to be people who will contribute positively to my life, not people who will contribute in the opposite way. Okay. And when we see people contributing positively in our lives, meaning driving our dreams forward, we see success happen. So what I call the leadership deficit is that we don't lack people with dreams or visions per se, but we lack people to facilitate visions and dreams, people to help visions and dreams make happen. And I'll show you now how this ties into leadership. Okay, I'll show it to you in a bit. For now, let's look at another interesting concept, which I call the solo leader delusion. That's what I call it, okay? The solo leader delusion. Because before I actually get into the image, I'm sure you can see the image there on the screen if you're looking at it. Before I get into the image, I just want to explain to you why I'm calling this the solo leader delusion. So I'm calling it the solo leader delusion because I think Nyokabi said something very interesting. She talked about how if you have a dream, it is your responsibility to achieve it. If you have a goal, it's your responsibility to achieve it, right? Nobody should stop you. Even if other people come and, try to stop you, they shouldn't stop you, right? Now, something very interesting that happens actually in our lives. Some interesting thing that happens in our lives is that when we experience people roadblocks, okay, when people become the reason why probably we failed to achieve a certain dream, what we normally do is we tend to think, all right, if people won't be able to help me achieve my dream, I'll do it myself. I don't know if any of you have had that feeling before. Elizabeth, have you ever felt like, since no one is there to help, I'll do it myself? Have you ever felt that way before?
Yes, I have. I have many times.
It's a common feeling. How about you, Nyokabi? Have you felt that feeling before?
Yeah.
Yes, I feel it's a very common feeling that we face. Now there's something funny about this feeling, though. This is something that I want to have a conversation around. There's something interesting about this feeling because that feeling, even if you can do something by yourself. Like let's say you say, okay, fine, I'll do it myself, and you get it done. If a goal that you are having is truly ambitious and you maintain the same mindset or attitude, okay, I'll build the business alone. Fine, I'll do it. That's a delusion that you're having. Okay, and I'll prove to you in a minute why I'm calling it a delusion. Okay, so let's go back to the image that I showed you earlier, and then I can explain. We can build up a few ideas from there. So if you look at the image, you're going to see that this is a character known as Superman. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this character, but I believe he's a very famous character. That's why I have used Superman. He's very famous, okay? This is Superman swooping in to save the day. You can see there are captives. If you look at the screen, people have been held captive by an organization that is causing terror, and Superman swoops in to save the day, okay? Now, this Superman example is not strange. It's not just a cartoon idea. This Superman idea is actually happening every day in our world, especially I'll refer to the world of business. The world of business is where this Superman idea is more prevalent, okay? So for example, the world needed a more intuitive and more elegant computing experience, okay? Because a long time ago, computers were a mess. Computers were nothing beautiful as we see today. So the world needed, that beautiful experience with computers. And who came into the picture? If you are aware about these success stories, as much as I look into them, if you look into them, you'd understand that Steve Jobs is the one who came in to save the day with the iPhone and Macintosh. He's the one who beautified computers. Okay, that's why Apple is so famous as an organization, because if you see a phone today, a smartphone, the way it looks, the touch screen, Apple was responsible for that. Okay, Apple was the first company to produce a phone beautifully designed in that way as a touch screen, as we know it. Okay, yeah. So Steve Jobs saved the day in that sense. If we think of like the world, when the world needed an everything store, but online, right? Because when you are able to shop online, there's no inconvenience. You don't need to walk to the shop. Everything is just smooth and beautiful, right? The world needed that. And who came in to save the day when the internet was just booming? Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos came in, saved the day with Amazon, right? So if we think of other things as well, Starbucks. I don't know if you guys have heard of Starbucks before. Starbucks, they sell coffee. So I can say that the world needed like a place in between home and work, in the middle of home and work, a third place, right? To be able to chill, relax, do some work, have that experience, And this guy thought of opening a coffee shop. His name is Howard Schwartz. He opened the coffee shop and Starbucks was born. And he was the one who saved the day. Today, we have a whole coffee industry today. I'm sure in your countries, Kenya, Zimbabwe, if you go to Kenya, there are coffee shops everywhere. In Zimbabwe, there are coffee shops everywhere. This guy is one who brought in, who commercialized this concept, right? Now, let me ask a very important question. We know the names of some of these people. People like Jeff Bezos, people like Steve Jobs, maybe even Howard Schultz. We may know the names of these people. But I'll ask this, Nyokabi, do you know, for example, the people who were operating behind him to build this organization?
No.
No clue, right?
Yeah.
So how about you, Elizabeth? Do you, at least one person, can you tell me at least one person apart from the ones I've mentioned who are behind the scenes?
No, I've got no idea as well.
No idea. Yeah. So this is the problem that we are having in our society and also as far as leadership is concerned. Okay. The problem is we are so used to seeing the end product, the outcome, the result, but we forget that behind there was a process, and that process had champions. That process, in a sense, had leaders behind the leader that you know, if I can put it that way. Okay, without those leaders behind the leader you know, Amazon would not be what it is today. Without the leaders behind the leader you know, who is like Steve Jobs, Apple would not be what it is today. So it's more importantly, what I believe today more than ever is that more than you, the leaders behind the leader is the important person. Action. I don't know if you get. Are you able to hear me, guys?
Yes, we can hear you now. We lost you for some seconds.
Oh, what was the last thing you heard me say?
You were talking about the leader behind the leader.
Yeah, so I was saying that the leader behind the leader, I feel for me, is actually more important than the leader who you know. Okay, because ultimately they are the ones who bring the success. The leader you know by themselves cannot bring the success. It is the leader behind the leader that brings the success. So I was also talking about the story with my parents where I taught them how to own a car company. If I became successful owning a car company today, it's my parents' leadership actually that I would credit more than even my own personal leadership. So no matter how resilient you are, because we hear this, no matter how good your mindset is, how resilient you are, you need people who have or are better than you, who have the same mindset or even better than you for you to achieve the goal that you want to achieve, the ambitious goal. So when I bring this to your perspective now, Nyokabi Elizabeth, how does that make you feel? Does it make you feel scary? Like, oh, or does it make you feel empowered? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, when it comes to achieving your goals, I believe that you have to be surrounded by people who have the same goals for you to achieve that. And now when
Yeah.
it comes to family, I have a different opinion because necessarily you can, the people surrounding you may not be very influential in, or may not even be supporting your dream. Does it mean that I cannot achieve my dream, but I can surround myself with other people who are ambitious? It doesn't necessarily mean that my direct environment.
Yeah, actually, I'm not talking about your direct environment in this case, actually.
Okay.
I'm talking about the team that you are working towards the goal.
When it comes to team, yes,
Okay.
you cannot do it alone. You definitely require a team.
Yeah. Now, the perspective I'm trying to paint here is the people you can't do it alone is a statement everyone uses. Everyone says you can't do it alone. Okay. But despite us saying you can't do it alone, we find ourselves surrounded by people who cannot even help you achieve the goal.
Yeah.
I don't know if you get it. Yeah. You have people, yes, you're working with them, it's your team, but they can't help you achieve the goal either way. but you believe you can't do it alone. So what I'm trying to define is a quality. There is supposed to be a certain quality, a certain type of people you need to achieve your goal. So I don't know if you've ever, like, if you see that perspective. It's supposed to be a certain type. The lead, that's why I'm calling him the leader behind the leader. So for me, the leader is not the one who stands in front, the one you know. The leader is the facilitator, the one who drives the machine. You get the sense, right? What I'm trying to bring out. Elizabeth, are you saying something?
Oh, okay. I get the sense. Yeah, it makes sense. You need people that will be influential to help you achieve those goals.
Yeah, not just influential, by the way. We will get to the what type of people, but what I just need you to understand is they need to be a certain type of people, not just people. I don't know if you get the sense.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Not just, yeah, it's not just about, oh, you can't do it alone, you need a team. We hear that a lot. You get what I mean? That is something
Yes.
we hear, yes. But they need to be a certain type of people. It just can't be anyone. And it's very important to understand. For me, I will admit, when I first realized it needs to be a certain type of people, I kind of felt a little bit, let me use the word powerless. Because I cannot influence what type of people. I felt like, okay, this is how I felt like. I can't influence what type of person should be in my team. I don't know if you get what I mean. Like, especially with the fact that I'm not a company who is able to hire the best talent. Okay, so my question was, how can I influence the type of people in my team? I don't know if you get what I mean. My question, right? Because yeah, it's not like I own the greatest resources to be able to find these people or to be able to go to the best type of people and say, okay, let's achieve this goal. If I could, I would, but I can't. So how do I achieve the dream? You get, I don't know if you can empathize with the question I asked myself.
Yes. Can I say you're trying to do the impossible by just what was I saying? I had a train of thought. I don't know why I'm losing it. But
Yeah, I feel like you're leading from.
yeah. So I think when it comes to building a big business, what I am reading from is that you can't retain everyone who comes. Not everyone is meant to stay. So you as the leader,
Yes.
it's the people who stick are the ones who have the qualities that you're saying that your
Yes.
team has to have that quality. But now
Yes.
I think that comes to strategy that you increase your numbers and then you work on retaining like a 50% and make sure that from the people you are acquiring, 50% have at least the qualities that you want, then you fine tune them. I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually a good point of view. Thanks for that, actually, Nyakabi. That's a good viewpoint. We'll expand it later and discuss it, actually, because I'll introduce a perspective that I feel will drive the conversation in favor. For now, though, let me tell a story, and this story is going to help us put into perspective how big this problem is. Okay, when we say we need people to achieve our goals, and they have to be a certain type of people, this story will put it into perspective. So I think from the image, you can see a woman there. She's homeless and she's preparing her daughter, okay, to go to school because she lives in this, I don't know what you call it, the pipe. It's like a cement pipe. That's what she lives in, right? So there's a story, okay? I want you to imagine yourself visiting a remote rural area, maybe in your own country or out of your country. But you visit this remote area, and then when you visit this remote area, you find 10 homeless people. So when you find these 10 homeless people moved by their need, you begin to engage them and discuss with them. Okay, you begin to do a needs assessment, try and see how best you can help them, okay, with the problem. So then these people come to you and tell you, no, we need your help and everything like that. And in your wisdom, you decide that, okay, you're not going to just build a house for them. No, that's not something you're going to do. You're going to teach them how to fish in your wisdom, right? So you begin to teach them how to fish. What do? You begin to host training meetings with them. You begin to educate them on how they can get their house built. You begin to connect them with the experts that can help them build their house within the area. You just equip them. You do the very best at equipping them with everything, okay? And then, finally, you even provide the resources for them to be able to build themselves a proper house for them to live in, okay? And once everything is done, you spend probably like a year setting all that up. Once everything is done and you're happy with the results, and then you leave them saying, all right, fine, you guys go ahead and build your house. I'll not build it for you. You have to build it yourself, okay? But you only had capacity for them to build one house. Okay, so the 10 people would have to build one house and live in it. And you leave them with good words and you depart, okay? 1 year later, you happen to pass through the same community. And guess what you find? You find the materials that you had prepared all wasted, and the people who you hoped would be living in a home by the time you returned have no home at all to live in. And when you find out from them, okay, with empathy, you ask, you guys, I left everything with you. What happened? And then the people say, well, we just couldn't work together, okay? What does this story teach us? This story basically tells us how, when it comes to working with other people, it is not necessarily about having money, having, the best talent or having the right resources for you to make working with other people work. It's not really about that, okay? It's because ultimately we fail to work together because of human nature. Okay, it's just human nature that stops us from working together. Our ego gets in the way and we fall into different traps, okay, that make us fail to work together, okay? And what happens is when we fail to work together, we find ourselves experiencing what I call collaborative friction. Okay, so collaborative friction looks something like this. If you can look at these two trees on the screen, these two trees are growing together, right? They're growing together. So when these trees are growing together, inevitably as they become bigger and bigger, what happens? They begin to rub one another, okay? They begin to rub one another. So that's the kind of the friction that takes place when you're working with people. Especially when you say, I want to work with highly competent people. When you say, I want to work with highly competent people, as you grow, as they get bigger and as you get bigger, what happens? You begin to clash, okay? You can't clash with somebody who you're bigger than. If you're bigger than them, you can't clash with them. Because you're bigger than them, you just put them in their place. You just tell them, hey, behave yourself, and that's it. But when both of you are big, and that's what we've just discussed, that's what it needs. You need someone big to achieve your goal. You need to work with someone big. You can't be working with someone small and you've got a big goal. That's not possible, right? You won't achieve the goal. But if you're going to work with someone big, especially like we've discussed, there's definitely going to be collaborative friction and lots of it. Okay? And that's where most people as well go back to the solo leader delusion by saying, it's fine, I'll work alone. We just couldn't work together with that person, okay? So why I bring this up is because I found this trap happen to me, and I see that it happens to most people more than we think, actually. We know that, okay, I've set this ambitious goal. For me to achieve this ambitious goal, I need people to work with me. But the thing is that when we go out there and try and see, okay, fine, let me find people, we realize that we need a certain type of person. But when you get that type of person, you find your capacity is not even able to accommodate that type of a person. Not capacity in terms of resources, not capacity in terms of finances or anything, but capacity in terms of your ability to accommodate other leaders, for you to work as leaders in the same space. You get the sense, right? So yeah, that's actually something very interesting. So as we come to the conclusion of part one, I want us to think on this. What do we know so far from what we have gotten to discuss? Okay, so what we know so far is that to achieve an ambitious goal, we need to help each other. We need to work with other people. So in other words, collaboration is a must. That's the first thing. The second thing we know is that working with other people is not easy. it often leads us to the people roadblock, the one that we talked about, right? And this people roadblock that we talked about, it makes us feel like working alone is much better and the like. So number one, collaboration is a must. Number two, collaboration is not easy. That's the second thing that we have learned so far, okay? Number three, collaborative friction is not a you problem, okay? But it is a general result of human nature. So we also know that friction is not personal, and it shouldn't be personal. When there's collaborative friction, it should never be personal, okay? So these three things are the fundamentals of building a collaborative environment and fostering leadership in an environment, okay? And that's why I have coined this term that you are hearing today, known as the Leader Factory, okay? Because the Leader Factory is not a building, but it's a culture, okay? It's about a culture. So this is actually interesting because Nyokabi did mention that it's, you know, if you're going to work with other people, it's about strategy. And I like the fact that she used the word strategy. It's about strategy. But strategy is also highly influenced by culture, okay? For example, Nyokabi talked about how you could have 100 people in your team and maybe you remain with 50 that are going to be valuable, and maybe from those 50, maybe 10 are the strongest leaders that you have. Yeah, that's okay. That could happen, but without the right culture, it can't happen. Without the correct culture, it can't. It's not going to happen, actually. So actually, you need to know what culture is going to make it happen. So that's the bigger question actually to answer before you even put effort, because you put effort, it's kind of like hiring, like a company. Think of a company that is hiring. They will hire massively, but without knowing the right culture that needs to be in the organization. They'll hire massively, and those people will turn out to be people who do not actually help to deliver the goal that needs to be achieved. You get the sense, right? So more than anything, it's about building a culture. So the Leader Factory is about understanding what exactly that culture is. Okay, that's what the Leader Factory is all about. And when you understand that culture, something very interesting happens once you understand that culture, okay? Now, for us to get to a point where we reach to this place where we believe, or whether we believe that working with others is a must, okay? We need to experience an awakening that I call the humility awakening. We need to humble ourselves, really. We do need to, because it's not easy. Like I said, it's easy to work with a common person. It's not easy to work with a person of high potential, a leader, somebody who can bring results. It's not easy to work with such a person. Such a person needs you to be a strong character as well, for you to work with them, okay? So I call it the humility awakening because it's the most strategic decision that any leader can make, to admit, first of all, that I can't do it alone. But for me to be able to do it with others, I must build myself to a point whereby when such a leader shows up, I can accommodate them. I'll be humble enough, I'll be wise enough, I'll be strong enough to make sure that we move and make results happen. You get the sense, right? So I don't know if the picture that I've painted so far has changed a few perspectives here and there about collaboration, from what you knew about collaboration to what you know now, and maybe a little bit maybe about leadership. I haven't driven the point home when it comes to leadership, but maybe a few things have started to change. So maybe I can get some feedback so far from the progress that we're making, because we are now coming to the end of part one. So how has been, from what I've shared so far, has anything changed from your understanding? Maybe you can start with Nyokabi.
I totally concur with everything you've been talking about. That for you to be a great leader, you also have to be able to identify the great leaders in your team and be able to be humble enough to learn and accommodate them. Then when it comes to the other parts, no man is an island, and the world has been built for us to work together. So when it comes to any kind of goal, not just the ambitious one, but when it comes to any kind of goal, we need to collaborate with people, and we need to collaborate with people who have the same ambitions as we have. whether it's in
Mhm.
personal life or in business. You need
Mhm.
to collaborate with people who have the same ambition.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate that perspective. Thanks for that, Mugabe. How about you, Elizabeth? Is there anything that has changed from what you have understood about collaboration and now, or leadership in a sense?
Yes, it's really interesting actually to know that being a good leader is not all about being able to influence people, but to collaborate with others, ensuring that the friction is being eliminated in a way, and also to have that culture that is required for the business to be a success, and using the
Mhm.
right strategies in
Mhm.
order to bring out the best leaders in that
Mm.
case.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate that feedback. So yeah, ultimately, this just defines the problem. Okay, what we're doing is just defining the problem, and the problem, like I mentioned earlier, is that it's not that we lack leaders per se, in the sense that we lack people with a vision. Okay, no, it's not that we lack those types of people. Okay, what we lack is, okay, the vision is there. Can we have people to work with to facilitate the vision, and can we also have people who can accommodate such type of facilitators? That's where the gap is. Okay, because right now, as I'm speaking, think about it clearly. Just take a moment to think about it. Right now, if you wanted to open up a highly successful software company, and Bill Gates himself in the flesh can accommodate the fact that you get, and capacity is not about money. Okay, it's not about, we will see these things in part two. Capacity is not about money or anything like that, but capacity is about the character, the culture that you have created for yourself to influence the people around you. Do you have what it takes to be able to keep that collaborative environment, to accommodate the strongest leaders, but yet remain a leader as well in your own environment? So we'll be looking at that in part two. In part two, we'll continue laying the foundation for excellent collaboration by, I'll give you 7 rules that you can follow. Okay, just 7 rules that you can follow for you to be able to create this type of environments that I'm talking about, that is able to not only bring collaboration, but also raise the leaders that are equal to the task that needs to be achieved. Okay, so I'll be doing that shortly. Let's just take a 5 minutes or 10 minutes break, and then we can be back. So we'll come back at 11:05. Is that fine? Or make it 11:10?
It's okay. 11:05
Which
is
one should
okay. I
we
don't
do?
know.
Yeah, okay. Or we can,
How about you, Nakabi?
yeah, that's fine. Or we can continue. Any is fine.
No, I need the break. So
Okay,
11:05. All
okay.
right,
Okay.
I'll be back. Okay, so we can continue from where we left off. And remember, we're looking at the Leader Factory. And by looking at the Leader Factory, we're specifically looking at building an excellent collaborative environment. So it's about building a culture where we can build leaders, right? So laying a foundation for collaborative excellence is what we're going to do. And we're going to get into part two. Part two is about the 7 rules or cornerstones, that's what I call them, for excellent collaboration. The 7 rules or cornerstones for excellent collaboration. So before we get into these rules, I want us to understand that we're coming from a place where we have admitted that we need to work with others. But we have also admitted that, yes, despite the fact that we need to work with others, they need to be a certain type of people. Otherwise, if they're not a certain type of people, they may not be able to help us to be able to achieve the goal that we need to achieve. Okay. So to influence that, to make sure that there are a certain type of people, we need to be able to create the culture to bring in those type of people, or to nurture those types of people within our environments. So we're going to see how these rules can help us do that. But first, let's start by just going through the rules, okay? So I'll go through them one by one, starting with the first one, which we have touched on a little, okay? But we will go through it just to explore it a little bit more and then move on to the rest. And the first one is, rule number one, always see the leadership gap. Always see the leadership gap. Now, as I give you these rules, you have to take note that this is more of a mindset training in a sense, okay? It's about your mindset. What does that mean? It means that when you learn about a rule, it's about how to train your mind to think. That's what the rule is meant to do. It's supposed to train your mind to think a certain way. So always, when you're working with people, you're always supposed to see the leadership gap. What does this mean? You're always supposed to be able to see that you need to work with a certain type of person. And those types of people are don't just come up by accident. So that causes a gap. It's like you're here, you have a goal to achieve, and then you're like, you need people to work with, but they need to be also there. That difference between where they are and where they need to be is the gap. So you always have to be aware of that gap, always, okay? You need to be always aware of the gap. If you're not aware of the gap, what's going to happen? You're going to end up getting frustrated, thinking as if people are no good, but you just don't know the gap. Because you don't know the gap, you don't know how to close the gap. So you should always see the leadership gap. That's the first rule. So if you look at this image, for example, you realize that people are having a conversation in the room, but the one who you could perceive to be the leader, the one who is standing, is kind of invisible, okay? That should be the goal that you should have whenever you are working towards an ambitious goal. It doesn't matter how you feel about that ambitious goal. Your goal should always be to be the invisible character and to let the others, the ones who are stronger than you, those who are better than you, to be able to take the light and make things happen. You get the sense, right? When you have this mindset of always taking the invisible role and always making sure that people get the best visibility, the people you're working with get the best visibility, get the best exposure, then what happens? The organization or the goal that you want to achieve becomes to be more of a reality. Get the sense, right? So this is something that as a mindset should be ingrained within yourself and within the culture of the organization. Always see the leadership gap. That's the first rule. So we'll proceed to the second rule, okay? And the second rule is that you should always go together and never alone. Always go together, never alone. What does this mean? Yeah, we know that, like I said, we know that to achieve something, we need to work with others. That is a common adage that we have learned. Okay, to achieve something, we need to work with others. No, teamwork is important, but there tends to be moments where we feel like working alone is actually even better. Okay, that going together is always the better option, as long as your goal is ambitious. Because if your goal is ambitious, it means that you do not have all the resources necessary for you to be able to achieve the goal that you need to achieve. Okay, and to put this experience into this mindset into perspective, I'll tell you a story. Okay, and this story can be demonstrated by the picture that you can see. This exercise is a team exercise known as walk the plank. Okay, or plank walk in some cases, but you're walking the plank. So what happens is that you're going to be standing on the plank, like these two planks, like the way you can see, and then you're going to hold the ropes, okay? And the goal is that as a team, you're supposed to get to the finish line faster than your friend, your opponents, your competition. Okay, you're supposed to get the finish line faster. Now, while this exercise just may look maybe simple in your mind, this exercise actually takes the biggest toll on the one in front. The one in front is the one who has the biggest job with this exercise, because the one in front actually is the one who determines how the others as well move. Okay, because I experienced this exercise when I went for it was the moments when I realized how important it is to be able to, number one, as a leader, understand that you need to work with others, but they also need to be a certain type of people. This was the exercise that gave me that click. Why? Because as a leader, yes, I'm in front. I will put all the energy that I have to try and lift and move the plank forward. But if the others don't do it, nothing's going to happen. So they need to also do it with the same amount of energy or even more. If they don't do the same amount of energy or more, nothing is going to happen. I will be really pulling their weight, which is not going to be the best circumstance for me. In fact, it happens to me. This is something I'm narrating as something that I experienced, okay? So when I'm pulling, the others also need to pull with the same weight or with the same force rather, or more, okay? What does that mean? It means as a leader, I need to communicate a certain type of way to make sure that that strength is released in them. I need to give them pace, I need to give them tempo, morale, but ultimately my goal is that they should be able to use as much force as I am using or even more. But for them to do it, they need to see my strength as well. But if they don't see my strength, they cannot be able to do more better than I have displayed. You get the sense? And so you see that skill now is not just about a plank walk. Now just imagine an organization, because this is just an exercise. You're having fun with your friends. But now imagine an organization. You have to do that in an organization. You have to do that in a team. You have to be able to show your strength in all areas. If you've got a weakness, you have to be able to admit it with strength. You know, there's a way to admit a weakness with strength. Not admitting a weakness with weakness, right? You have to be able to admit a weakness with strength, with character, with posture. And they are supposed to be able to also rise above you, to be equal or above the strength that you have displayed. That's the only way the plank can move. The plank can't move if they don't do that. So always go together, never alone. That's what it means. Meaning equal strength or more should be applied from the rest of the team for you to be able to move forward together and make the journey work, right? Yeah, so I hope that paints the picture. Are we following so far? Is it making sense? Any questions so far? Elizabeth, all good?
Yes, all good. I'm following.
Okay, no questions, Nyokabi?
Yeah, no.
Okay, so the third rule is diagnose, never complain. Okay, diagnose, never complain. Should always do this. Now, let's look at this picture. Imagine you go to the doctor. You reach the doctor and you start explaining about a throat ache that you've been having. So you tell the doctor about all the symptoms that you're experiencing with the throat ache. And then after telling the doctor that, imagine the doctor now starts complaining. The problem is that you don't like eating healthy. You are always eating sweet things, cold things, you know, oily stuff. Do you think your throat can be okay? Your throat can't be okay. Always eating things that are not going to benefit you. How do you feel if you went to such a doctor, Elizabeth? Would you go back to such a doctor?
No, I wouldn't. I would feel discouraged. I'll be expecting to get help from the doctor, but she's even discouraging me more.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't go back.
So I feel like that doctor is not providing any solution, right? In that instance.
Yes.
The doctor is not
yes.
providing any solution per se. Yeah, which is in this case they're just complaining. But if they could provide a solution, then I think that would be better for everyone, including yourself, right? Okay, so remember when we talked about friction? Friction being inevitable when you work in a team, right? Friction is inevitable. Now, this is the part where the 7 rules actually become very interesting, because the third rule is actually the anchor. It's the anchoring rule concerning how you maintain a collaborative environment. And it's an anchoring rule because whenever friction comes up, if you've noticed in any environment, at home, think of any place, at work, home, church, whenever there's friction, what's the instinct that people have? The instinct is to complain. Okay, that's the instinct. That guy is always coming late. That guy, he never listens to what I say. That guy, that person, that client, that customer, that always, there are complaints in any area where it's collaboration, because collaboration brings friction, and then friction brings out complaints. Okay, but the thing is, I always wonder, and I would like to maybe learn from you today, Nyokabi, why do you think complaining is the default setting? It's like a default setting. Why do you think that's the case?
Oh, I don't have the answer to why, but it's just,
Yeah,
I don't know. We've just
it is
been
the way it is.
programmed. Yeah, we've just been programmed to first see the negative in
Yeah,
each and every scenario. I don't know. So in each and every circumstance, we have to prove our way out of the negatives. It's just
yeah.
a vicious cycle.
Okay. Interesting perspective. How about you, Elizabeth? Why do you think complaining is like? Why is it the default setting?
Okay, I think personally, people don't want to take responsibility for the negatives, so they would always want to be on the defensive.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
complaining will be a way of trying to defend themselves from taking
Yes.
the blame.
Yeah, very interesting. So complaining is actually a very interesting outcome that we find in most teams whenever collaboration or friction rather arises. I have done some research to figure out where this complaining really stems from. Before that, I want to see if I've noticed Ayanda has joined us. Hi, Ayanda, how are you? Yes, now I can. I wasn't able to, but I can now.
I'm fine, thank you. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
So,
Hi, how are you?
Good, I'm good. How are you, Elizabeth?
I'm good, thank you.
Awesome.
okay. So just having a building up on the conversation of leadership in perspective. What we're talking about the leader factory, and as we're talking about the leader factory, we've laid the foundation where we've talked about where this whole leader factory idea comes from by identifying the deficit that is there in our environment. And the deficit that we have identified is what? Maybe Elizabeth can try and explain. Elizabeth, can you help me explain the deficit or the problem that we have identified so far? Elizabeth, are you there? Are you able to hear me,
Sorry
guys?
about that. Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. I thought
Yes, now
probably I
I'm
lost you.
able. Okay,
Yes.
we identified that there's a problem with collaboration, and that collaboration is not easy when it comes to leadership, be it in teams
Yeah.
or wherever. So it becomes a challenge, and there's also friction. And then to prevent that problem from happening, there needs to be a culture that can be set for a team in order to follow the type of culture, so that it becomes the leadership strategy becomes effective. in terms of implementation.
Okay. Yeah, actually, that's actually a nutshell of what we have discussed so far. Thanks for that, Elizabeth. So to also add one more thing as well. So ultimately, the reason why we're trying to solve this problem is because to achieve an ambitious goal, we need to work with others. But we realize that to work with others, they need to be a certain type of people, right? It just can't be anyone. But to attract that certain type of person, you need a culture. Correct? So that's what we have looked at. So we're talking about complaining now, or rather, we're not talking about complaining. We're going to, we're now heading towards the solution, where we have discussed the problem. Now we're looking at 7 rules that you could apply within an environment to enhance collaboration. But these rules are about a mindset that one has to have. So the mindset is being cultured or guided, is being directed by these 7 rules that we're discussing. And we'll read rule number 3. So rule number 3 talks about how you should diagnose and never complain. And the diagnosis always has to come in whenever collaborative friction arises. So now we're talking about complaining, and what I wanted to do is just to give you some thoughts as to why I feel complaining actually is the prevailing issue within our environments. So first of all, we realize that I have found rather that complaining is more a low effort way for us to avoid accountability. Okay, it's a very low effort way to avoid accountability, because when something goes wrong, it's easier to blame an external factor, right? It's either to blame a person, a system, or a situation, rather than taking responsibility. So it allows us more to offload that frustration without having to do the hard work of finding a solution. So that's what complaining does. And because of that, it's very convenient, really, if you think about it. But secondly, as well, complaining is also an emotional regulator. Okay, it really is an emotional regulator, and because it's an emotional regulator, it feels good actually in the moment when you complain. Our brain actually somehow releases dopamine in a sense. It's like that feel good feeling, when you complain actually, and because of this, it creates that temporal sense of relief when we complain, and we feel validated, especially if another person joins us in complaining. You are complaining, and then your friend says, yes, actually, oh my God, it's the best feeling in the world. If you think about it, right? Genuinely speaking, it's the best feeling in the world. Then third, we realize that society actually conditions us to do so. Like Nyokabi mentioned, actually, society has conditioned us. So we believe that complaining, for example, is actually a form of accountability. Okay. And because of that, it doesn't really help us, but we still do it. Okay, so most of the times, actually, because of this, complaining to some extent it works. Okay, and it took some time for me to admit this. It took time actually for me to admit that complaining works. But for us to create the collaborative environment we're talking about, complaining is not a good strategy, but it works. Because think about it, even in our homes, without complaining, our homes would be a mess. Because the best way that we find, with the little time that we get with each other in our homes, whenever we rub shoulders and whenever there's friction, is to complain. That's no one is taking care of this. And then when you feel bad about it, you do something about it. Maybe you do it because you avoid being told, I told you so. You know what I mean? Such type of things. But complaining basically is a huge part of our culture. So when I talk about this rule number 3, which is that you should diagnose and never complain, it's actually really hard for me to tell someone to stop complaining, because I know that it's not something that I can tell someone to do, to say stop complaining. No. But what I can do though is to provide an alternative, which is to diagnose. So what does it mean when I talk about diagnosis? Okay, simply put, find the problem or see it as an opportunity to find a solution rather than complaining. I think that's something also that Nyokabi alluded to. But if we're going to do that, if we're going to be able to see a moment of friction as an opportunity to find a solution, then there has to be another thing, an extra component in our mindset that we should have, that should help us do that, right? And that's where rule number 4 comes in. So rule number 4 simply says that we should filter through task. Okay, filter through task. That's rule number 4. And when you talk about the task framework, this is a framework actually. It's by research, the world's first framework on collaborative friction. Okay, the world's first framework on collaborative friction. And what you realize is that in any team, you have common complaints, like I said. And when you have these common complaints, they can be categorized into 4 aspects, T, A, S, and K, which is time, action, size, and knowledge. So when you categorize this into these 4, you realize that some of the common complaints that you have when it comes to time, you find people thinking about the fact that they don't have enough time. When it comes to actions, you find people thinking about how an action doesn't make sense to them, or they don't necessarily feel like involving themselves in an action. And when it comes to S, you're talking about someone talking about too much work, or maybe too little work. Actually, it goes both ways. Either they'll feel it's too much work, or you're not giving them work that fits, that is befitting for them. And when it comes to knowledge, you hear people talking about the fact that they don't know how to do it, and sometimes it will just be the mere failure to express the fact that they don't know. So these are common complaints. But when you have these complaints, we should be able to filter them through the task framework. So it's a framework that helps us look at a complaint, and instead of reacting to the complaint, instead of being reactive, we're able to look at that complaint and interpret it in a solution-oriented way. So it's important to understand that the task framework is not a tool, it's more of a framework. By that I mean, it doesn't help you solve a problem by like a tool does. You know, a tool will help you solve a specific problem, like a hammer will help you drive a nail in the wall, right? But the task framework doesn't do that. The task framework helps you think about the problem differently. So it's that's why I'm calling it a framework. It's a thinking structure that helps you think about the problem differently, okay? So how does it help you think about the problem differently? Let me show you just briefly, because this is not the session where we dive deep into the task framework. Here, I'm just introducing these 7 cornerstones for a start, but I'll just run you through briefly. So when it comes to T, when you talk about T, which is time, when you hear a complaint related to time, any time complaint, we should never look at those time complaints as time complaints in themselves. Like if a team member comes to me and says, I don't have time, it's not necessarily about the time. It's about priorities, okay? There is something that is up their list compared to what it is that you've asked them to do, okay? Now, is that a good thing? Yes, it's a good thing. It means that the person is telling you, I've got something important about my life, which is a good thing, because if you just attempt to actually find out what that important thing is, you'd actually be closer to the person than you would be if you just dismiss them by saying this person is difficult, they are never around, blah, blah, blah. So consider this. Somebody tells you, I don't have the time to do this. Then, okay, that's fine, no problem. In my case, I'm very curious, genuinely as an individual, about what you're up to, right? So I'll genuinely ask, what would you be up to at that particular time? No, I'll be doing this. I wouldn't ask the question so that I can coerce you or trap you into doing what I want you to do. No, I'll ask it to genuinely just learn about what you'll be up to. What you'll be up to? Oh, I'll be doing this, that, you know, I'll be attending to my sister. There's a certain errand that I need to run with her. Okay, that's great. So as you do that, are you going to maybe have some fun around it, or you're just going to run the errand and back? Oh no, I'm just going to run the errand and back. We plan to do this. And the conversation will build up there. No, all the best. When you find the time, when you're able to do this, let me know and we'll get it done. Okay? What does that do? It helps you to be able to begin to build a sense of trust and respect with another person. Why? Because the next time, somebody can feel, I can actually move around my priorities for this person because they respect my time. You get the sense? So I feel like I can move around my priorities for this person, right? And you can also do the same for them. There's that mutual understanding that you have between the two. So that's just an example. But when it comes to time, it gets really sophisticated, because when you talk about priority, okay, priority can also be defined from a strategic point of view. An organization has a strategy that it needs to implement, okay? A certain target, a certain goal that they need to achieve. And that strategy needs to be a priority and the language that the organization speaks down to the last person. So a time problem is, how do we make sure that we align the last person's priorities to the strategic goal that the organization has? That's how you're looking at it. So if you get really good at using this framework, you're supposed to be really good at identifying all those complaints that come into the organization that are against this strategy, or opposing, not against, are opposing the strategy, and see how best you can get that information and create a system or strategy to make sure that you influence people in the positive and right direction. So it gets that sophisticated, but from a natural one-on-one point of view, it's simple. It's just about understanding the other person's priorities and respecting them, right? And making sure that you align your priorities with theirs. That's it. When it comes to actions, what you're saying then from an action point of view is, if somebody complains to you saying, I don't want to carry out this action, I don't want to do it this way, I don't want to close the deal like that, I don't want to, right? It doesn't make sense that I'm doing it in that way. Okay, rather than complaining as well or forcing it, the best thing is to see it as an indicator that the person, what the person is trying to tell you, the person is trying to actually communicate to you what they value, their sense of purpose. Okay, they're trying to communicate to you where their heart lies as far as their value system is concerned. Okay, and is that a bad thing? No, it's definitely a good thing, because you're about to learn something about someone. So you might as well ask, oh, you don't carry out this action, what do you think would be a better approach? And the person could tell you, could actually give you an answer that could actually change the entire organization altogether. You never knew it, and you'd never know it if you never asked that question, right? Sometimes they don't have an answer. They'll just tell you, I don't know, but I just don't want to do this. That's okay, right? It's all right, because ultimately, what you realize is that by you respecting that, you do two things. You win the person's trust, but ultimately you get to have time as well to figure out how to accommodate such type of a person in case in the future you have 5 of those people. Because if you have 5 now, if you couldn't handle one person who was like that, if you have 5, what happens? Total mess, right? Now, so it gives you the time. It gives you the time to be able to think through it and identify, all right, this person is not comfortable with this. What can I do? How can I best package it? How can I best sell it? Okay, that's a one-on-one point of view. But from an organizational point of view, it can become more complicated and sophisticated, because what you're trying to do from an organizational point of view is you're trying to foster buy-in. And the word buy-in, you're simply trying from an organizational point of view to make sure that the actions that are being taken in the organization are being taken with a 100% buy-in by the people that are involved in it. Okay, from an organizational standpoint, it becomes more sophisticated, but one-on-one point of view, I think you can learn something just from that. Okay. So, yes, you're talking about size. When somebody complains, this is too much work or this is too little, you're basically, what they're communicating to you is their capacity. Their capacity. So actions, they're communicating to you their sense of purpose. S, they're communicating their capacity. Capacity meaning, this is how much I can do. Capacity changes over time. So it's not a variable that you can just lock in and forget about, right? It changes over time. So it's supposed to be consistently observed. So when somebody tells you I can't do something, rather than complaining back or saying this person is lazy, they can't even do this simple task, no, it's not that, all right? Find out what their capacity is. What would be comfortable for you? Okay, how about we take it bit by bit, or what if I increase the amount of work? Will that make you happy? Find out. In doing so, you build the trust and ultimately you. But again, organizational point of view becomes more sophisticated, because now you're talking about work planning and all that stuff, right? You have to be able to design your entire organization in such a way that whoever comes in the organization is able to fit into the work schedules perfectly. It doesn't matter how much time they have to contribute, but they're able to come in and fit in the work schedules, because you have clearly defined this S factor, the capacity structure. You have it's well defined in the organization. Okay? Finally, there's knowledge. And here, I always like to say that when somebody is curious to learn, that's when the learning happens. If I come to you and give you information, like for example, I had to really ask if you guys are interested to have this conversation with me so that we could tackle these issues, right? But without you bringing yourselves in, then this conversation would not be possible and would not be fruitful for us to have, right? Yeah, so where there's curiosity, there's learning. So knowledge, when somebody tells you, this is what I like to, this is always what I like to remind myself is when somebody says, I don't know, doesn't mean they're ignorant, no. Doesn't mean they're no good, no. It means they know something else, right? If the person says, I don't know, it means they know something else. So you can ask, what do you know? Not in an arrogant way, no, but like in the very, I mean it. What do you know? Like I would like to know, okay, you don't know this, cool, fine, no problem. Forget about that. What do you know? And by understanding what they know, and by being confident in what they know, you get to realize that, oh, even if it's directly opposite to what you want the knowledge to be useful for, you realize that you build a sense of trust and they can open up and be more curious around you. And because of that, you can then bring in what you want them to know. You get the sense, right? So that's from a one-on-one perspective, but from an organizational perspective, it has to be embedded in the system. It has to be cultural to the point that the technical structures in the organization and the social structures in the organization are able to deliver the environment that fosters curiosity. So we need to be able to look at it from that perspective, right? Yeah, so that's what filtering through task means. That's rule number 4, filter through task. Any comments before I proceed? Or I can go on to number 5. Okay, great. So let me just proceed to rule number 5 quickly so that we can build up from there. So rule number 5, we've learned that friction is inevitable. So you have to plan for friction. You have to plan for it, okay? It's a must. You have to plan for it. Now, remember, this is a mindset. We are addressing the mindset issue. I'm not giving any technical skills. I have done research on technical practices that you can put in place. For example, there's what they call a pre-mortem. It's a pre-mortem. It's found in project management. But what I have done is that I have identified a way you can conduct the pre-mortem from a collaborative sense, okay? So I'll just give you an idea of what planning for friction means. When you're planning for friction, before you get into any collaborative environment, okay, with anyone, I think you best want to anticipate what type of friction is likely to occur by the fact that you guys are going to work together, okay? It's best to anticipate or think through it, even if you don't get it right, but as long as you train your mind to begin to anticipate, to know that the friction is going to be there, and to think, okay, what type of friction is going to be there? I think it becomes something that we can digest better when we're not in the action. When we're in the action, we panic. When friction comes up and we're in the action, oh my God, it becomes, oh, what did I get myself into? Now I can't agree with this person. We cannot communicate. We can't sit eye to eye. So when friction comes up, it's a mess. So better to plan for it in advance. That's basically what planning for friction means. And the pre-mortem, what I call a collaborative pre-mortem, don't mind the jargon, but a collaborative pre-mortem, it helps to just be able to understand. So what it does is it identifies the goals that you have. You say, okay, these are my goals within this collaborative environment. This is my plan, okay, the original goal and the original plan. And then you think, let's think something goes wrong from the collaborative perspective. And when I talk about the collaborative perspective, you should stick to rule number 3, filter through task. So as far as time is concerned, action, size, and knowledge, where could things possibly go wrong? So that you have a scope. You have a scope of thinking. Okay, time means priority. Fine. As far as priorities are concerned, where would our priorities clash? And you begin to just think about it, right? I think our priorities would clash in this area, that area, and you write those things down. Okay, fine. Okay, let me think about our actions. Is it possible that this person will not have buy-in? And you think through it. Okay, yeah, it is possible in this area, that area, that area. Okay, is it possible that this person will find it too much work? Or is it something that's not challenging enough for them? And you write down. How about knowledge? Do they have the right knowledge to facilitate this type of venture? Blah, blah, blah. You write them down. And when you write those things down, you then can think through a strategy that you can put in place to be able to implement what it is that you need to be able to implement to avoid those possible friction points and failures. That is what it means when you plan for friction. Okay. So that's rule number 5. And then rule number 6 is about defining your win. Defining your win. Okay, this is very important in collaboration. As far as defining your win is concerned, I like to use this as an example. Let's look at this cake. It has been cut into pieces. Okay. Now, yeah, the cake has been cut into pieces. Now let's imagine. Imagine Nyokabi and I. We agree. Nyokabi says, "Favor, you're going to get 2 pieces. I will get 3 pieces. The other half will go to other people, right? Okay, cool, fine. Now, when we begin to interact and relate before we get the pieces, okay? Let's say we agree that we're only going to get the pieces after a particular work is done. And that's when we get the pieces. When we begin to involve in that work, priorities shift. Like we talked about the task framework. Priorities change. Capacity changes, okay? Buy-in changes. Knowledge changes. And what does that do? It affects the win. It affects the outcome. So all of a sudden, we had the conversation earlier, which said, you're going to get 2 pieces, I'll get 3. Then the conversation changes. No, yes, you get 1. The other one will get 5. Like, how has it changed in that sense? You get the sense, right? Is that conversation okay? Yes, because in a collaborative environment, things will change, things will shift, right? It's bound to happen like that. But when you have your eye on the ball, objectively, okay? When you have your eye on the ball, you can be able to defend why you need 2 pieces. And if you can defend why you need 2 pieces, not only can you defend why you need 2 pieces, but you can also defend the other people who need to get their fair share. You said, no, these people still need to get their fair share in case you identify another person who's trying to get the share of others, right? So you need to be able to objectively, honestly identify your win and define it really well, so that when things in the collaborative environment get dicey, you can stand firm and walk away with what you need to walk away with, right? That's basically about defining your win. Yeah, so that's rule number 6. So just go to the last one, which is rule number 7. And rule number 7 is about context. And as I like to put it, context is key. That's rule number 7. In other words, everything we've talked about right now doesn't matter if you're not going to consider context, because collaboration in a home is different from collaboration in the workplace, is different in collaboration in politics, collaboration at church, collaboration in religion, whatever it is, it's different, okay? So we should always keep the context in mind. And when we have the context in mind, we should always know that there's no such thing as an island in collaboration. There's no such thing as an island in collaboration. In other words, these areas will mix. Always they'll mix. Home will enter work, work will enter home, home will enter politics, politics will enter church, church will enter politics. It just works like that. Okay, there's nothing like an island. And if we try to separate them, we only cause more confusion. So we need, and that's nature. Nature is like that. So we need to be able to find a way of having the mindset that is able to define context very well, even through this confusion. Because it's not you who's going to be bringing the confusion, mixing things. No. You know, we can say, no, don't bring work at home. When you come home, just focus on family. That's okay. You can put those rules. But nature will bring work home. It's nature that will do it. It's not you, or no, nature will do it. Something will happen that will cause work to come home, okay? Something will happen that will cause home to go to work. Something will happen that will cause politics to go to church, it's just nature. But as all that happens, we are supposed to be able to keep our eye focused on the context. Are we talking home matters? Are we talking business matters? Are we talking work matters? What are we talking about in this context of collaboration, so that we don't mix things up and we achieve the goal that needs to be achieved? So those are the 7 rules of collaboration. And if we follow these rules rules that can help us shape our mindset, excellent collaborative environments that will lead to the results that we need to build, which is the culture that develops leaders. And I'll be showing you that shortly as to how that then leads to that. So I have a short exercise, but before we get into it, I just want to get some feedback from maybe Elizabeth and Gabi. So far from the 7 cornerstones, which one was your favorite and why? Let's start. Who's going to start?
Okay, I can start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, with me, my favorite was to diagnose and never complain.
Okay.
Yes. Why I chose this one is because it teaches us that complaining, okay, it's good in a sense, but it's only a temporal sense of relief. But when
Yes.
it comes to collaborations, we would need to diagnose the problem that is there and never complain.
Yes.
So
Okay.
it gives
Very
us a positive result when we tend to diagnose the problem instead of having to complain without having a solution to enter that problem.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate that feedback. Thanks for that, Elizabeth. And how about you, Nyokabi? Which one is your favorite and why?
For me, I'd start with first, context is key. I feel like that is very important. Then also very important is to make sure you always go together and never alone, because you never achieve your goals when you leave your teammates behind.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate that feedback. Thanks for that. So let's just do a small exercise now to drive everything home. I know we've hinted at this in the discussions that we've been having. So let's do this exercise to try and drive everything home. So with this exercise, I would like you to take out a piece of paper, or I don't know if you have pieces of paper, honestly, but you can get your phones too. So remember the goal that you wrote down, that ambitious goal, right? Elizabeth and Yokabi, you wrote down, you still have it?
Yes, I do.
So can you just write down 3 resources that you need to achieve your ambitious goal?
What do you mean by resources? Resources is relative.
Yeah, so think of your ambitious goal, okay, and think of what if you were to have those things right now, it would take you at least closer to your ambitious goal. There are a lot of resources, you need a lot of resources, but just 3 that if you had right now, it would take you closer. And try to be specific.
My question is define the resources in this
Okay.
term.
Yeah, I'm keeping it general because it depends on your goal. So let me give an example. If my goal is to open a bakery, okay, so a location would be a very good resource for me. If I had a location, I'll be 1 step closer to me opening a bakery. That's one. Number 2, if I had, let's say, $2,000 to buy machinery, that's another step closer. I don't know
Okay.
if what I'm saying.
Yeah, the problem is mine is getting my car. I just need the money. I go
That's all.
purchase. And you said free.
No,
Now
but
I'm looking for the
apart
other
from,
two.
yeah. Okay, I get you. I get what you mean. So you can write down the specific amount of money that you need to get. That's okay. Write down the specific amount of money that you need to get, and that's fine. Let's start there, okay? Because the exercise generally builds up. So that's okay. You can just write 1. Elizabeth, how about you? Do you have a similar problem?
I'm trying to work on it. It's not really
okay.
similar.
Okay, but you're able to write down resources that you need?
Yes, I think I'm able.
Okay. You just write down, let me know if you're good so that I now tell you what to do next.
Okay.
Are we good?
Yeah.
All right. So what you do now is this. So pick one resource from the three. Yeah? Just pick one. So your copy already has one only. That's okay. So just pick one and ask yourself this question, okay? Can I have this resource by taking 5 simple steps that are within my control? What's the answer to that, the first question? Is it a yes or a
Yes.
no?
Yes.
You can? You're able to list 5 steps that you can take, and you have that money.
Yeah.
5, just 5.
5 steps.
In 5 steps. Okay, yeah. 5 steps. Are you able to share if you can? 5 steps that you can take and you have that money. The steps should be in your control. Huh? Are you able to do, as in, I don't know if you understand when I say in your control, like you can do it right now.
Is setting goals and working towards them a step.
Okay, let me use this example here. If you want to plan to go to town right now, give me 5 steps you take in your control to go to town right now.
Showering, getting dressed, leaving the house, boarding whichever means of transport I want to use.
See how easy that was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if now, can you do that with your goal to achieve that amount of money with 5 steps? Is it a yes or a no?
I said it's a yes.
It's a yes. So I want to hear those 5 steps.
You want to hear them in?
Yeah, like, are you able to share those 5 steps?
Yeah, in a nutshell. But basically, my steps is first, I've identified my goal very well and I put a time limit. Then the second thing I've done is to identify how I'm going to get there. So this is the steps, right? So
Okay. So just a minute.
yeah.
Just a minute. I need you to understand the objective of the question, okay? The objective of the question is to get you to see if right now, okay, within the current resources that you have, if you can take 5 steps to make that amount of money. So, for example, if you want, yes, if you want to make $5 million, if you want to make $5,000 right now, the 5 steps, okay, would mean I pick up my phone, I call the bank. That's step number 2. I say, all right, I'm coming there to withdraw $5 million. Is it possible? Fine. And you go to the bank and you withdraw $5 million. And it's in your, actually your table right now. You have $5 million. That's the steps you've taken. Or you call a friend, the friend gives you $5 million. That's also steps in your control right now to have $5 million right now. Like, it's not a hypothetical question. Like, we're talking from, I don't know if you get the sense.
Oh, we hadn't put that we are achieving it right now. Oh, that's different.
Right now. Yeah.
We are achieving it right now. An ambitious goal we are achieving right now.
Yeah,
is there a way?
How about you, Elizabeth? How is it for you?
Okay, with me, okay, I did come up with the three, ambitions? The resources, actually.
Did I say 3 ambitious goals? It's just one. You just needed 1 goal.
No, for the first question, by the way.
The first one was for 3 goals, or you just needed 1?
Was it not for 3? Okay, anyway.
Okay, yeah. But anyway, let's stick to 1 goal now.
All right. What I failed to get was the 5 steps. So
Yes.
my answer ended up being no
Uh-huh.
because of
Okay,
that.
so that when you say no, when the answer is no to that question is not an admission of failure, but it's actually a step in the right direction. Because the truth of the matter is this: if you can't achieve a goal that you have with 5 simple steps, then you need to increase your capacity. That's what it means. Okay. Now,
Yes.
to increase capacity, you need people. There's no one who can increase capacity without someone. I don't know if that makes sense. You can't increase capacity without another person getting involved. If you're going to increase capacity, you need someone else to get involved. Because even if you just need more knowledge means someone has to teach you somehow. For you to get that more knowledge, somehow it has to happen. You get the sense. Somehow another person has to get involved. So that's what it means. So that's the note here that I have for you. If your answer is no, then you need to ask yourself, who can get this resource for me? Now, here's the question. Nyokabi, honestly, have you ever asked yourself this question? Like, who can do it for me? Most of the times, if you think about it, I don't know. Maybe you might be thinking, how can I? Have you ever thought, who can do it for me?
For me, I always know that the person who can do it for me is me.
Yeah,
So
I appreciate that. Yeah, that's true. I'm also always thinking like that. How about you, Elizabeth? How is it?
Same applies with me. I'll be
Yeah,
telling myself that I'm the one who's supposed to achieve my own goals.
yeah. But I can assure you, this is a promise I can make to you. If you do your research very well, and if you have a goal, an ambitious goal, the question you're supposed to be asking, once the goal has been clearly defined, okay? Defining a goal is one thing. Once you clearly define it, you are confident in yourself. The next question you have to ask yourself is, who can get this resource for me? That's the next question to ask. The question stops becoming about you per se. It becomes about who can help you get it done. You get the sense? That's normally most of the books that I've read, like success stories, in terms of these companies that we know today. If we read through them, you understand the founder of the company. After defining the vision clearly, the next step is which investor, which CEO should I employ, or COO. It's always from that point. It's about who. It's never about I can achieve. No, it's never about that. It's the story changes, okay? And this is the realization point that we need to get. This is the essence actually of this seminar. The essence of this seminar is to get us to a point where we genuinely realize that, that's actually something I've not been thinking about much. But it's not something easy because it's also part of mindset. Because you need to be able to maintain your individuality to say only me. If it is up to be, if it is to be, it is up to me. You have to maintain that. That never should change. But there's a second dimension now that you have to open. That second dimension is where the trick is. You get the sense, right? When you open that second dimension, you now enter into in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey writes, they are what they call synergetic relationships. You can't have synergy type based relationships if you have not entered that second dimension. Even this guy talks about the mastermind. Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich. He talks about the mastermind. There's no one who can achieve great success without the mastermind. What is the mastermind? The mastermind is when you and another person form that common understanding to achieve a goal. So, but it only happens when that when you enter that inquiry, where you're asking who can, okay? And that is the inquiry even that I advise people to have, especially those who are also in your business as well. Nyokabi, Elizabeth, in your business, whenever you're asking yourself who, you begin to attract quality people. You get, because that's the wavelength you've entered. You've entered that space. That dimension needs to be opened. You get, yeah. So that was part 2. It was about laying the foundation and getting us to realize that we need to be able to build the culture. So before we move to part 3, is there anything that we can look at before we move to part 3, which is the final part, by the way?
yeah. So on the question of who is to help you get
Okay.
there, is the who coming from upwards or from just from downwards? Is it How is the pull? Is it coming from downwards, upwards, collectively from both sides?
Oh, sorry, what do you mean upwards or downwards? I'm not understanding that part.
You said leaders. The leader. It's a matter of who is behind the leaders, right?
Yes, yes.
So that is my upwards. Then when I'm looking at downwards, I'm looking at creating a team, and you're also creating another team on this other side.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah.
the downside. So my question is, from which side is your who coming from?
Yeah, it's both sides actually.
On equal
both.
measure, or what percentage?
On equal measure, because think of it this way. Think of a traditional organization, okay? In a traditional organization, if you're head of department, you're appointed as head of department. You have a team that you are managing, okay? Without you having the who can help me do this mindset, you will never identify who in your team would drive the results. Without having the who can help me as you look up, okay, you will never know who can connect you to the right visibility for your team.
Okay.
So it's literally an all-round 360 approach you're supposed to take, yeah, because you need the ones on top who pull you up. They'll give you the visibility, they'll give you the exposure that you need for you and the entire team. The ones down will help you implement and facilitate and drive results. So that balance is what brings the result, and you have that balance.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay, let's move on to part 3. I don't need to take a break now because I took a break the first time. So I don't know about you guys. Are you good?
On my side, I can
It's
continue.
okay. We can proceed.
Elizabeth,
It's okay. We can
you
proceed.
can proceed?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. So let's get to part 3. So part 3 is about the key to making it work. I think it's just right that we have this conversation, right? Because we've built up well, and we're at a point now where we're thinking, okay, that's interesting. So how do we actually make this work? So the organizational behavior works when you're looking at an organization, okay? Organizational behavior, meaning the behavior in the organization. One thing we have to understand is the behavior always starts with the individual. Always, okay? It starts with an individual. Now, when you have that individual influences a group. Then those groups influence the entire organization. But when the organization now is influenced, it is expressed as what we call culture. That's how it's expressed. What you understand as culture. Now, when this expression comes as culture, it goes back again to influence the individual, whichever individual comes into the picture. Oh, my video is actually off. Yeah, the next time an individual comes into the picture, it influences he's influenced by the culture, which influences the group, which influences the organization further. So it becomes a vicious cycle. Why is it important to understand this structure as far as organizational behavior is concerned? It's because what we have learned so far can now be interpreted in this very way. For example, if we talk about the 7 cornerstones that we've gone through, in fact, before we get to that, let's just look at how leadership, because we talked about culture, right? So let's look at it this way: the individual, then the group, then the organization, and then it builds the culture. Now, the culture, even in leadership, can be defined with this same process. Okay, an individual can possess a certain attitude towards leadership. It will affect the group, then it will affect the organization, and it becomes a leadership culture. So from that perspective, we can look at the type of leadership culture that we want to have to achieve the goal that we're talking about earlier, to solve that problem where we need people to help us achieve our dreams, right? Yeah. So the culture that we want is, first of all, we need to have a culture that acknowledges that leadership is not a title. Okay, if you're going to rely on titled leaders, the success is not going to come. If you're going to rely on titled leaders, yes, titled leaders are supposed to be effective and they're supposed to maintain their role, yes, but if we rely on them, success won't come. Okay, so we need to be able to have a leadership culture that has the ability to inspire and empower others. Doesn't matter who it is. That's why I asked earlier to say, do you think anyone can be a leader? This is where it comes in. We need a culture that inspires and influences everyone. Okay, it empowers everybody. The second culture that we need to have for this collaborative environments to work effectively, okay, is that leadership is not, it is one that acknowledges that leadership is not scarce. It can be systematically developed. So you don't just need to go look for it out there. You also need an environment that fosters it, okay? An environment that builds that leadership culture, okay? In other words, an environment that solves the deficit problem we're talking about, where we have people who are drivers of the agenda, people who can facilitate, leaders behind leaders. That's what we need, right? We also need a culture that admits that leadership can be duplicated. Okay, it can be duplicated, which means that we can have leaders behind leaders and have more leaders behind leaders and leaders behind leaders, and the cycle can continue, never breaking. Okay, so that's the culture that we need to have, and we should be able to understand from this that the measure of a leader is actually not what they achieve in themselves, okay, but what they enable others to achieve as well. Okay, that becomes the measure of the leader then. Not necessarily just what you achieve, but also how many leaders as well you get to raise within that environment that you have cultivated, right? And then fourthly, it's a culture that acknowledges that every individual possesses a unique value and potential. Everyone you interact with is unique. They have got their own strengths, their own weaknesses, their own personalities, and that the culture should be able to acknowledge that. And number five, the needs of the people. So it's a leadership culture that is able to adapt, highly adaptable culture, which means that the leadership structure that we need to implement to achieve such a goal is supposed to be a leadership structure that maintains a peer-to-peer relationship. It's not bureaucratic, where it requires a long chain of command for people to make decisions, or for people to take actions, or for people to do things. It doesn't. If you have that approach, even if you have a bureaucratic structure, somehow I do believe there is a way to find the sweet spot where you can create an environment or a culture where people are able to make decisions freely, autonomously, to achieve the results that need to be achieved. Hence, creating a very highly adaptive environment. Okay, prioritizing the needs of the people, right? Yeah, because needs change ultimately. They really do change. And when they change, if you're not agile, your leadership culture that we need. So how can we achieve this leadership culture? It's basically about following what we have discussed so far. And I'll show you how to put this all together, right? This is how we put this together. We start with the individual, like we said, remember? Now the individual follows what? The 7 cornerstones as their personal rules. They follow the 7 cornerstones that we learned about as their personal rules. But when they follow them as their personal rules, it develops their mindset. And when it develops their mindset, they begin to influence a group. Okay, so think of me. I have the mindset adopted by the 7 cornerstones, and then I begin to influence you guys, right? And as I begin to influence you guys as a group, you influence another group, because probably as a group, we do have that potential to influence other groups, right? And when we influence other groups, ultimately we influence an organization, right? And when we influence an organization, it builds up this culture. But remember where we started from, the culture is founded on those 7 cornerstones that we talked about. Meaning in the culture, we are always seeing the leadership deficit. We are always going together. We always diagnose and we never complain, right? We always filter through task, right? Meaning whenever we're looking at problems, we always look at them systematically. We don't look at them just randomly anyhow, right? And we always plan for friction. So because of that, people are always confident, always maintaining posture. We know our strategic wins. We all know what we need to get out of a situation. See that type of culture, right? And it keeps that collaborative environment. And finally, we all know that context is key. So we're always making sure that we are in the right context in whatever discussion that we're having, making things move efficiently and effectively, right? So by doing so, we express a culture of leadership now, which we talked about, one that prioritizes the aspect of leadership development can be possible for such type of a person, so long as the environment remains collaborative. Okay, so this is how we get to that point. You get the sense? This is how we piece it all together. And it's not possible if we don't become effective at doing one very important thing. And by that important thing is what I call the master's mindset. We need to adopt this mindset. It's called the master's mindset. So if you look at the screen, there's a picture of DNA, right? I think you can identify DNA. It's a beautiful structure. There's something fascinating that I find about DNA. DNA is interesting because if you think about it, if DNA was a person, if it was a character like me, let's say DNA tending to favor, that's DNA would be good at two things. Okay, number one, DNA would be a great teacher. Why do I say so? Do you know, both of us, or do you ever think, if we ever think about it, we know, I know we know, but we don't think about it much, as to how both Nyokabi and I can eat the same meal. We both eat rice, but Nyokabi will never have my nose. Never. We both ate rice, but she will never have my nose, because her DNA has taught her body the exact nose that should appear on her face. No matter what she eats, it doesn't matter. This nose should appear. DNA has made sure of that in your body. So it's an amazing instructor. Okay, so amazing. It doesn't matter what you put in the body, it has to come out as the DNA has instructed. Okay, that's the first mindset that it has, the first thing it does, which defines the master's mindset. Okay, the second thing that DNA is very good at, it's a good copycat. Meaning when it wants to make a copy, it's very good at making a copy. In other words, it maintains its actions as consistently as it can, despite evolution happening for over 1 billion years. It maintains its actions, okay, as DNA. That's what it does. So it's very interesting, actually, the way DNA works, right? So that's the master's mindset. Therefore, I do conclude that when it comes to the human aspect, the master's mindset is one where you are a good and passionate teacher, not a teacher as far as being a great speaker is concerned. You don't have to know to talk well, and that really that can come. Yeah, it can come, but before you even reach that point, you're just supposed to have the heart to instruct, the heart to guide. You know, those people just feel lazy to guide. You don't want to guide your friends. You figure it out. No. With this, if you want to build this culture, that attitude is actually not so good for this culture. Okay, this culture is supposed to be an instructional culture, a culture that adores instruction, it admires instruction, and we're very kind in instructing and generous in instructions. We never run out of instructions, but not instructing because somebody needs help. Okay, not sending like you want to inconvenience someone. No, somebody needs help and you guide them, instruct them. Oh, this is what you do. You can do it like this and like that. Very good at that, right? That's number one. Number two, when we carry out our actions, we should carry out our actions as though somebody is watching us who is going to copy us. There's a copycat always watching us. So because there's a copycat always watching us, we are carrying out our actions effectively. Okay. Because of that, we create an environment where we can easily get into what is known as duplication, right? So duplication is where 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, and so on and so forth. Not in terms of numbers, but in terms of the value system and the culture. Hence, making us build the organization and growing into that organizational culture that we talked about, right? So that's how you make it work. You make it work literally through the literal act of adopting the master's mindset, which then leads to duplication. The beautiful thing about duplication is that it happens whether you like it or not. So the question is, are you duplicating what you want to duplicate? That's why it's very important for us to rely on the 7 cornerstones or the 7 rules, because then we know that we are duplicating what we want to duplicate. Because there are rules, actual rules that people can follow, not rules to follow because if they don't, they receive a punishment, but rules to develop their mindset, right? Yeah, rules that act as the blueprint to develop a certain mindset. And when we develop that mindset, then we know what we're duplicating, right? And when you know what you're duplicating, it becomes the culture. When it becomes a culture, it becomes the heartbeat of the organization. Okay, and when it becomes the heartbeat of the organization, there's no telling what would come out of it, the potential that you'll be able to see. So when this happens, once we have this is where the finale actually comes in now. We then begin to see something amazing happen. We begin to see habits that begin to develop in the environment, and these are the habits. Okay, and that's why I told Nyukabi that it's not just about somebody having the ability to have a vision that will help you achieve a goal. These habits, I call them the 5 habits of leadership. They're the ones actually now that begin to pop up in your environment. Okay, or they're the ones that now people begin to express to you, and these are what will now help you achieve your goal. For example, vision casting. I'll go through the 5 first. There's vision casting, there's effective delegation, smart management, there's shared responsibility and singular accountability, and maximizing potential. These 5 habits. There is no goal that can be achieved without these 5 habits being abundantly present in an environment. Okay, so for example, if you have a vision, you need somebody who can understand the vision you have and communicate it just as good or better than you do. That's vision casting. If you don't have someone in your team who can understand the vision of the organization and communicate it just as well or better than you do, then you don't have a leader in your organization. Okay, so my view of leadership is not about the position. No, it's about these habits. Because when you have these habits, it doesn't matter how you organize them is now organizational structure. It depends now on the time, it depends on the size of the organization, all those change. But as long as these habits are there in the organization can succeed drastically, actually, because you have leaders in the organization, because you can identify these habits. Okay, that's the first one is vision casting. If you have a vision, you need people who can see the vision as well and communicate it equal or better than you can. Number 2, effective delegation. If you have work that needs to be done, you need people who are good at finding the right people who deserve that work, to empower them, to build them, not as a task dumping tool, right? You know, delegation can easily turn into a task dumping tool. I don't want to do this. Hello, I've got a job for you. Can you do this? And you give them because you feel it's a low, they call them low value tasks. But no. Low value shouldn't mean that. If it's something is a low value task to you because you have done it over and over again, it should be an empowering task for another. It should be empowering for the next person, right? Yeah. Just because it's low value for you, it doesn't mean now you should just throw it anyhow to anyone. No. You should identify somebody who, this person actually can benefit from this the same way I did, the same way I grew. Come and do it. Get the sense, right? Yeah. So effective delegation is a skill you need to be able to see mushrooming in the organization, right? Another thing, smart management. This is actually one of my favorites because this is something that we are scared of such people, and these people pop up in the organization. Okay, smart managers. A smart manager is someone who can see the rules. Okay, they'll see the rules and they'll find a way to achieve an outcome without breaking the rules, but somehow they'll bend them. They'll bend them in a way. Okay, why are these people important? Because not everything you achieve is within the rules that have been defined. You need to go out of the rules. But if you're going to go out of the rules, you need smart people who can do it in a way that doesn't get you in trouble. They can go out of the rules, but they'll never get you in trouble. Those people are highly valuable in any organization, even in any success story. Okay, they're not rule breakers, but they just know how to navigate. Okay, they're just like that, right? Those are the smart managers. And then you also need people who can have a shared sense of responsibility and singular accountability. What does that mean? A shared sense of responsibility means when it comes to work, we have that togetherness spirit. I can pass the ball to you, you can pass it to me, and all that. But when it comes to outcome, only one person should take the fall. 2 people can't take a fall for something. It's a bad for collaborative culture. Okay, in reality, it happens. 2 people can take the fall in reality, but for a collaborative culture, it's not good. Because when you have one person to take the fall, it acts as a circuit breaker. Do you remember the collaborative friction we talked about? When you have a person who can take the fall and it ends on that person, bam, the person says, no, it's my fault, I'll do it, I'll take it up. It avoids that cycle of complaining and blaming. It breaks it. It acts as a circuit breaker in that sense. You get the sense? So as much as responsibility can be shared, for example, if we're conducting a session I can pass the ball. Nyokabi, can you conduct it as well? Okay, no, tomorrow. Nyokabi says, no, you do it now. Tomorrow I say you do it. But when things go wrong while Nyokabi is doing it, it's my fault. It's not Nyokabi's fault. It's my. Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, what was the last thing you heard me say?
You were talking about singular accountability when you were giving an example about Nyokabi saying if she's been assigned something by you, it will still be your responsibility.
Yeah, so thanks for that, Elizabeth. So if I assign something to Nyokabi and Nyokabi is doing that, we have shared the responsibility, but accountability is mine. Okay, I have to be accountable. Okay, that's what maintaining singular accountability means. Okay, there's more that we can discuss as far as this concept is concerned. Okay, but for now I'm just introducing them because I don't go deeper into the habits in this particular session. Okay, so then we have finally maximizing potential. So these are the people in your organization and in your team that you see they believe in people. They have a good way of inspiring and motivate. When they enter the room, people are always charged up because of them. Those are the people, right? They just know how to use their words, they know how to use their actions to motivate and move people. Okay. So these are the 5 habits that you see when you have and maintain an excellent collaborative environment built on the 7 cornerstones that we talked about. And you get to see the logical sense actually from it when you begin to practice this, especially when you begin to do the exercises that are related to these aspects. You begin to see why it makes sense that these habits actually would come out from such an environment established by the 7 cornerstones, and why you need a collaborative environment to foster these habits. It is from these habits now that you can have leaders in environments to achieve what it is that needs to be achieved. Whether it is people at the top or bottom, like Nyokabi said. In terms of the structuring, it depends on the organization. But basically, this is the environment that you need to achieve the success that you need to achieve as far as people are concerned. So that's what I had for you today as far as this seminar is concerned. Okay, so before we conclude, I just want to get some perspective from Elizabeth and Nyokabi with regards to putting it to work, especially with regards to the 5 habits. Have you identified how this affects leadership as far as your understanding of leadership is concerned? I don't know if my question is clear. Elizabeth, is the question clear?
Can you please go through the question again?
Do you see how the 5 habits of leadership are able to spring forth from the collaborative environment that we've been talking about, and why it's important in a leadership environment that we're talking about?
Yes, I do see how they are collaborating with that, because especially in terms of shared responsibility, it speaks to the collaboration that's supposed to be there in leadership, whereby you be engaging others as well So to get that responsibility in terms of getting the tasks executed, yeah, I think, yeah, that one speaks to the collaboration mostly.
Yeah. Okay. I hear you. And when it just out of curiosity, when you look at yourself as a leader, which habits do you think you possess the most? Which habit do you think
Okay,
is likely to display the most?
I think perhaps smart management.
Ah, I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that coming. Really? How come? Why do you say smart?
I think, well, generally, I think I'm able to do that.
Yeah. Okay. I would love to have more conversations with you on this. I want to have your CV. I think you have a very good CV for you to say it like that. You've got a very good CV to back it up. That's interesting. Thanks for that, Elizabeth. How about you, Jokabi? If you look at the habits, which one do you think you can lean more towards?
Which one am I seeing?
You want me to display them for you?
Yeah.
Just a minute. Okay, there we go.
Okay. So is it the one I imagine myself doing, or
If you feel like you're not yet there, then you're the one you imagine yourself doing, or maybe the one you've seen you already possess. Yeah, whichever angle is fine. Whichever angle you answer the question.
hmm, hmm, hmm. Which one?
Just out of, if you are to just choose, not if, yeah, if you are to just go off the fly, may not be
You
the
as a
reality.
leader, which one will you choose for me? If I were to
Ah!
reverse. I
No,
think
don't
as
do
a
that.
leader,
I
you
want to
should
hear from
also. No, as a leader,
I can no,
you
let's do this. Let's do this. I'll also answer the question. But you tell
you
me where
answer
you
and
lie.
then I
I'll
tell
also tell
you
you where I lie.
about myself. You see, yours,
What I mean, what I mean is I'll answer for myself. I'll tell you where I fall in this category, where I think I fall the most.
and for me, I pick for myself.
Yeah, yes, you have to speak for yourself.
Okay. I think a little bit of each, but I'll place myself. Um, why you?
Because of the way you're sighing, you're like, ha.
No,
That's why I'm
I don't know
laughing.
why I'm seeing like the answer I will give will influence the results I have. I don't know why I'm
Oh no,
equating that.
the answer you give is not going to influence anything. This is just for discussion purposes only.
But it does influence.
Because
It doesn't influence the
no, you know I'm
results.
saying that.
Yeah.
I'm saying this because, honestly speaking, these habits that you're seeing right now, okay? These habits you're seeing, they are dynamic, okay? They're dynamic. And when I say they're dynamic is in different environments and different times as you work, you will express certain qualities more than another quality. So it's not these are not qualities that are like fixed on someone's character, just like that. But once you learn it, like for example, if you express the habit of vision casting in a certain environment, once the habit is learned, then that's it, you have it. In a different environment, let's say you're exposed to lots of delegation. If you're in different environment, you're exposed to situations where you have to be a really smart manager. And you're growing like that. You're growing. The next time again, vision casting gets enhanced. That's all. So the question is really just about in terms of conversation, where would you lean to if you had a choice and things like that? Not to affect anything. No, no, no. In practice, this is different. Practice, this is very different. Yeah.
Then smart management.
Smart management. Okay, that's interesting. I'm also surprised you chose that one.
But
I am.
okay, I'm working towards maximizing potential.
Okay. I think that I find that more believable.
Yeah, that's why I was
As far as
having a hard
conversation is
time
concerned.
answering. That's why I was having a hard time
Yeah, no,
answering
no, no. It's
because
okay.
it's that one.
It's
It's
okay.
not where I am. It's
Yeah.
work in progress.
Yeah, I get you. No, this is a dynamic process, really. You know, it's habits. You know it yourself. Which one habit has stuck in your life? Like you've never had an environment alter the habit or change the habit. That work like that. Habits change with time. They get upgraded. They fall off. They get enhanced. That's how habits are. So when you say I lean on this direction, it doesn't mean you lean there forever. No, it doesn't mean that. Okay. So that's basically it. So for me, all right, for me, I've had to stretch my effective delegation a lot this past year. I've had to stretch that aspect. So I'll fall in that direction for now. Yeah, because, and I think I've empowered people with this effective delegation this year. I have empowered a lot of people actually because of it. To the extent at which I wished, I don't know. I can't say it reached the level that I wished it, but yeah, I guess that's what I'll lean for now. Ayanda, would you like to also share which one you lean on? Or for you, not now?
I think maybe shared responsibility, singular accountability.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. That's interesting. It's interesting perspective. Yeah, so basically, guys, this is the conversation that I wanted to have with you today. And this is basically about the leader factory. So the leader factory is about creating a culture in your organization that makes these habits become more prominent in the organization. And when they become more prominent, you can now have leaders in that environment, not based on title, not based on, their charisma, but based on genuine habits that have been nurtured and fostered by the environment. So because of that, you can all drive towards the same direction. So now that we've have discussed this whole idea behind leadership, Nyokabi, what has your perspective of leadership changed in any way? And if it has, in what way has it changed?
Change. I don't know about change, but if I'm to talk about leadership, what I've seen is that I give a summary. Which question am I answering exactly?
Yeah, if nothing, if there's a perspective that has changed of leadership, you can share that in whatever way that perspective can be. You can share it, whether it's through giving a summary. It's okay.
So it has brought a lot to light. So for me, what I've gotten from this session is that one, it's especially about, I think a lot of us are always complaining. So it's a matter, what has changed is that I have to bring out the perspective of diagnosing the problem and actually finding the solution to that problem. And yeah, I think with that I will have, with diagnosing the problem, I think that's already 50% of the solution. So yeah, then also when it comes to dealing with people, the part where filtering through tasks, that's a different perspective where you also get to understand the people you're working with on a deeper perspective, whether it's the time perspective that they don't have or something that they are not understanding. So, yeah, the task framework helps understand your candidates well. And also, uh, it's very important for us to plan for friction as much as we think that for me I won't have friction. Friction is inevitable, and it's very important to know how to handle friction when it comes to dealing with your teamwork. So yeah, and then the most important one as a leader is for you to be humble enough to actually learn and listen to your teammates. Yeah, I think that's it from me.
Okay, I appreciate that feedback and perspective. Thanks for that, Nkabi. I wish I had a button for clapping. How about you, Elizabeth?
Okay, the session has enlightened me a lot, especially in terms of what kind of culture is needed for you to be an effective leader, in the humility awakening, being wise and strong as a leader, and also the delusion whereby as a leader you'd be saying, if people don't do it, I can do it myself. That won't be good for the team. And
Yeah.
also the aspect of the habits of leadership. It has really opened my mind more concerning leadership, whereby there are these various types of habits that leaders may possess, like vision casting, effective delegation, smart management.
Yeah. Okay. That's it.
Okay, I've got a question though on the habits of leadership, whether it's possible
Yes,
for
great.
whether it's possible for one leader to possess all those habits, or they may have all some of the habits of leadership.
Yeah. I think it's possible for a leader to possess all the habits. It is possible. And the people who we consider to be strong characters in organizations like a CEO, they normally do possess those characteristics, like in a whole. That's what I've noticed even from the people I've interacted with and the books that I've read. You find somebody is really good at communicating vision and stuff like that. But it is not a criteria though to be a great leader. There are people who are just great as far as vision casting is concerned, but we know them to be one of the greatest leaders of all time. Maybe they were horrible, smart managers, they could barely navigate through situations. They needed people to do that for them. They could barely delegate, but they just had this idea and this grand vision. There are people like that, but they still managed because they embraced the team spirit, right? So I can say, yes, someone can possess all the qualities, but it's not a criteria for a great leader. It's more of the charisma end. That's more on the charisma aspect. Maybe you are blessed enough for your personality to incorporate everything. You get the sense?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And thanks for the feedback that you have shared. So the goal of this session was to introduce you to the Leader Factory and to also ignite a possibility within you to maybe consider going deeper into understanding this whole Leader Factory idea. Because this was just an introduction to open your minds to the possibilities, right? But there are so many exercises that we can put in place and so many activities that we can do in order to make this culture come alive. But it cannot happen if we do not first see the possibilities. And that's what we've done today. So today was just about going through this whole idea of the Leader Factory and then seeing how we can build up from there. So to end our interaction, I do have a call to action for you. Okay, you can just take this home and think about it. I think some of you have already alluded to this, but I just want to bring it out one more before we end the session. And the call to action, first of all, which one rule, okay, or cornerstone are you going to personally commit to modeling this week? So you don't have to answer it. You can just take note of it and write it down. Which one rule or cornerstone, in other words, will you personally commit to modeling this week? And then the other question is, with whom will I duplicate this new mindset with? Okay, is there anyone who you're going to duplicate this new mindset with? If you don't have anyone yet, plan for it in the future to be able to duplicate this mindset with, at least the introductory aspect. You may not be able to deliver the whole session, but you can say, you can be teaching some things, don't complain, filter through task, diagnose and all that stuff. When these things become part of the language, it's becoming part of the culture, really. Yeah, so that's basically what I had to share. Any last comments? Because for me, I'm done.
Thank you
with
so
that,
much.
Definitely. I actually wanted to thank you guys for coming through today and interacting with me. We'll talk about those allowances.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll have a discussion on that later.
What do you mean we will see and the meeting is already over?
The meeting is already over. Imagine after the meeting is over. I need energy to have that discussion. I need to keep. That's how politicians do, okay?
Yeah.
Guys, sound like a politician. No, but for real, there's some instances require to be political, so we'll see. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys coming through today. And yeah, let's see what other interactions we can have in the future concerning the Leader Factory. That's if they're welcome. Let's see what other interactions we can have in the future concerning the Leader Factory, and let's see what we can also apply, what you can apply as well in the organization to make the success that you need to achieve the success that you need to achieve. With that said, bye-bye and all the best with the rest of the day.
Bye. Have a nice weekend.
Bye. Have a nice weekend.
Bye.